So you're contemplating going to welding school. Well, congratulations. I think that's a very wise course of action for a variety of reasons. But now you're wondering, should I go to a dedicated weld school, meaning one that specializes in welding, or should I go to my community college, which has a tech program that offers welding, or should I just buy a welder and learn in my garage and watch YouTube videos by way of instruction? I think that there can be some mystery there in making that decision because maybe you don't have a weld buddy or a family member who's a welder that you can bounce these ideas off of. It just so happens that I've done all three of these things, and I thought I'd make a video showing my experiences and kind of my conclusion based on those. Hopefully it helps you in your own decision-making process. My time in the Army was coming to an end, and I felt it was time to make some decisions about the rest of my working life. Graphic design and music and photography are fine, but they don't really pay the bills during a zombie apocalypse, and you never quite know when one of those is around the corner. So I thought it was high time that I learned something that could be used as a way of providing for my family, no matter what the economic situation. And I've always had a great respect for people that know things and know how to do things. So I hadn't decided specifically on welding as a career path, but it was up there among the trades that I felt were very worthwhile things to devote my time and money to. So I was still in the Army at this time, so I looked around for local instruction that I could do maybe after hours or on weekends, so I could still satisfy the requirements of my Army commitment, but also sort of prepare for when I left the Army and have a head start. But all the local community colleges only offered full-time programs. They didn't offer any kind of night school. So I was in San Antonio at the time, and I called up a makerspace that I found that was in Houston, about 3 hours away or so. And it turns out I was happy enough to find that they offered weekend classes for basic welding skills. Like you could get a stick welding class on a Saturday or something. And so I signed up for that. I drove the 3 hours. I was all excited. I drove early. I got up there early so that traffic wouldn't cause me to miss the class, and then got to the door and they turned me away. They said, yeah, sorry, the weld instructor can't be here today. He had some kind of family emergency. So I drove back home with my tail between my legs to try to regroup and think of some other way. On the advice of a friend, I bought a multi-process weld machine. I asked him, I said, do you know of a machine that I could buy where, I don't know how to use half these or any of these processes yet, but I don't want to buy like a beginning machine and then have to upgrade to a intermediate machine and then later have to buy I want to buy the machine that's going to serve me for a decade or more. And my very first project was the weld cart that now holds that welder. And while I think the design of that weld cart still stands up, I like the design. Whatever you do not look at the welds, because if you do, you may fall into a jealousy-induced stupor, and we don't need that on our consciences. But we didn't have a shop space, so the only work that I could do was out in the parking lot right next to the public laundry room. And I ran that machine off of a 240 volt extension cord that I'd made, plugged into one of the dryer outlets. So every time I wanted to weld, I had to set that whole thing up. And so that in itself was an interesting learning experience. At this time I was watching a lot of YouTube videos, which was helpful, but when you're an absolute beginner, it seems overwhelming and you have a lot of questions. If you don't have somebody that you know to ask these questions, you don't even know what you don't know a lot of times, and so it can be hard to even know where to begin. And I just kind of felt like the self-teaching method wasn't really working for me. The progress was so slow, and again, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I decided to do a full-time program at the local tech community college. And it was nice to have a space to work, I'll say that. The instructor there seemed like she was more of a facilitator. I thought it strange that she never really demonstrated anything. So we would start a new module, and like say we would start the aluminum TIG module, and there would be no demonstration, which was very odd, I thought. Instead, she would just talk about concepts, and she'd do a 5 or 10 minute monologue and then kind of kick us off into our booths to figure stuff out on our own. And I don't think it took us very long to figure out that she was just a terrible welder. And I think she hoped to hide that fact by just never welding. I finished up that semester at the local community college, and then we moved to Virginia. I wanted to continue my welding education, so I signed up for a full-time program at a dedicated welding school that cost $30,000 a year. Luckily, my GI Bill paid for all of that, which I'm eternally grateful for. You might ask, in my opinion, was that worth the $30,000 that students or my GI Bill paid? And I would say, spoiler alert, no. I don't think that was worth $30,000 by a long stretch. I regret to report, because I had very high hopes for this program, that I was constantly frustrated with the quality of the instruction. We had the same issues with lack of demonstrations, and most of us, especially in the trades, we're going to be visual learners. We need demonstrations of how to do things. It shouldn't be, you shouldn't pay $30,000 to be given a monologue for 5 minutes and then dismissed to your booths to figure things out on your own. And there may be a time and a place for that, but if the whole year consists of that, I think we have a problem here. I can't speak for other welding schools. I'm sure that there are some great ones out there, but I just don't think it justified the 30 grand price tag. So what's my conclusion? Which one should you choose? Dedicated weld school, community college, or learning in your garage and watching YouTube videos? The independent-minded part of me wants to recommend a self-learning approach to this. If you can call having free access to the largest database of instructional videos ever assembled by human hands, self-learning. But I think I have to recommend a hybrid approach, which combines some manner of formal instruction with some self-learning. And the reason I think that is because if you're serious about this, say you want to make this a profession, or you're a very serious hobbyist, and I've known some hobbyists that were on par or better than some of the professionals I work with, then you need 5 to 8 hours of booth time with your shield down, and I don't mean sleeping, every single day for a year at least, to develop that kind of skill. And it's really hard for me to imagine doing that when you're in your shop at home. Schools have some kind of accountability structure, and you need to be held accountable, and you need to see other students that are experiencing the natural frustrations that occur when attempting to become good craftsmen, and they need to see you experiencing those frustrations as well. And working out, what you're doing is you're shedding those weaknesses, you're shedding those deficiencies over time, and you're refining yourself into something that is attractive for a potential employer on the other side of weld school. And that's a tough thing to deal with on your own. You need the support of your fellow strugglees. I mean, unless you're one of those infinitesimally rare autodidacts like Archimedes or Eratosthenes or someone, you need to see other people dealing with, in a healthy way, hopefully, the struggles that occur when you're trying to learn something new. So I would say sign up for the program that your local community college offers. Save a ton of money over the cost of a dedicated weld school, and Watch those YouTube videos. Of course, none of this works if you don't spend every waking moment in your booth with your shield down. And if you think about it, you're never again in your life going to have this amount of dedicated practice time as you do at welding school. And I'm talking about, repeating these. You didn't get that fillet right, well, you spent the whole day repeating it and repeating it until you get it right. That's never going to happen again in your life. And it's interesting, I could, at a given moment when I was a student, I could look around at another student and watch him for 5 minutes or so, and I could tell with a fair degree of certainty whether he was paying for his schooling or whether his parents were. And it was just amazing to me. By the time that we graduated, I would say, 40 to 50% of the students left that school with barely a rudimentary level of welding skills, and it's because they were happy to squander their time and their parents' money socializing around the break table. I remember working my first job, and I was having a real hard time with the roots of fillet joints using flux core. I just couldn't get the metal to lay in there right, and fusion was an issue. I remember spending a lot of energy hoping that no one would wander into my workspace and see the nonsense I just put down before I had a chance to neutralize it with a grinder. That got really old really quick. So I probably watched more Jody Collier videos than any other channel, and sure enough, he has a video that addresses that specific topic. And so I shamelessly stole his idea, and I pretty much exclusively use his A-frame triangle technique, as I call it, for the roots of all my flux core fillet welds. And there have been other channels out there that have really helped me along the way as well. Weld.com, the guys over there, Bob Moffat and Redbeard. And, there's a guy whose name I don't know, but he calls his channel 6061. Does some of the finest aluminum TIG welding I've ever seen. All those guys have been instrumental in my own development as a welder, so I just wanted to mention them specifically. In conclusion, I feel that such as and Iraq and maps and they don't and such as have such maps as and welding with your shield. Oh my God. Of course, none of this works if you don't take advantage of every moment that you have in weld school. And why can't I speak? Why can't I say this? It's not that hard. Of course, none of this works if you can't speak English. How did I word that? Oh yes, brilliantly. The realistic part of me dictates that some kind of hybrid creature that's part man and part buffalo. I call it a muffalo. Why you won't listen? Have some kind of other benchmark that keeps you accountable. As I've said 3 times now. Community college, and do that program, and just do the program, and that's it. Video complete. Channeling. Let's not assume that just because you're a hobbyist, you're not extremely serious about the craft. Where was I going with this? I forgot. Oh yeah, hybrids. That's what happens with a midwit like myself. You can't go off on a tangent because you'll never get back to where you started.
Tic-tac, sir.